I've always wondered about that phrase, government of, by, and for the people. It's not the prepositions that matter. It's that last part, the people. Who are the people? The problem with choosing the people through voting is that only a certain kind of person is willing to stand for election. What if the representatives of the people actually were the people? What if we chose the legislative representatives by lot, by random selection, so that representation would accurately reflect the demographic composition of the people? What might that be like? Well...
So, LaTanya, what's in the letter from the Department of Selection?
Wow, I can't believe this. A few months ago, I put my name in this lottery, and I took this test so that I could be chosen or selected to be a member of the legislature, and I was actually picked.
You were? That's terrific.
Oh, I'm not so sure.
The only time we've really seen democracy work was in ancient Greece, and those were small city-states. And I'm not even sure that it was working there because women and slaves weren't even considered human beings.
I didn't honestly think my name would be selected.
That's fantastic, wonderful. Mwah, mwah, mwah. You're gonna be famous and rich and powerful.
But I didn't put my name there to be rich and powerful. Quite on the contrary, we have too many rich and powerful people in the legislature as it is.
There's no way I could possibly run for any office because I don't follow the guidelines of being with the right people at the right time, saying the right things at the right time, and having a lot of money for ads and so on.
My conception of what democracy should be is a system of politics and power that stems from the power of the people to vote their elected representatives into office under the concept generally of majority rule while protecting rights for minorities.
Back when the United States was in formation and some feared it as a radical experiment in a people's democracy, one of its intellectual founders, Tom Paine, wrote, "The right of voting for representatives is the primary right by which all other rights are protected. To take away this right is to reduce a man to slavery." Well, yes, the ballot is far to be preferred over the bullet, but the ballot has never resulted in government by the people.
I mean, traditionally, the legislature has just been this place of negativity where people's needs don't get addressed, you know, their issues aren't addressed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any experience. I don't know anything about policy issues or all the legal issues or all the budgetary issues. I'm just not sure I'm cut out to do this.
I like to criticize the government. I would like to see what it's like to actually be on the inside and to make those decisions.
Hello?
Here, this is Richard.
Hey, checking in. Hello?
Hi, this is Janine.
Hey. Say, I'm walking down the street right now. Let's see, is everyone on now?
Right, we're just missing Alan.
Hey, sorry I'm late. Metro was delayed.
Okay, we're all here now. All right, now let's get down to business.
Who's on this call anyway?
Okay, yes, this is Brian here. Let's see, I think it's Nancy's turn to facilitate.
Yes, it is, my dear fellow party members.
Excuse me, Nancy.
Yeah, Janine?
Is it really a party any longer?
Well, no one has raised objection otherwise.
Well, I thought the purpose of this teleconference was to dissect the fact that the party's over.
It might be that the party is only changing its venue, even given that the sortitionists have carried the day for the time being. They still haven't closed the door on what we can do.
Right. Well, there still remains a fundamental truth in elections. You know, it gives voice, not to a randomly selected nobody, but to an individual person.
And by choosing people randomly, they will maybe be more representative, really, of the population.
Then you would get a really different group of people that we have now.
Well, you know, this sortition thing is pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It's a trick, nothing but a gimmick to take power away from those of us in the party.
Interesting proposal here. Naturally, what we all seek in our governance is the best possible governance that we as a society are capable of producing.
It sounds very good. It sounds very democratic.
Well, I think it's an innovative idea.
In that it doesn't take in consideration, you know, special interest groups, you know.
It's worth it to give it a try.
And sometimes we think that these special interest groups are the ones that really control policy in America.
Because in the current system, I don't think it's representative enough.
A lot of times minorities and also people of lower socioeconomic status do not have the same opportunities that people with higher incomes do.
Kind of like affirmative action. You like to think that you don't need it, but the sad truth is, I think it's a necessary evil.
But I think that the main thing is whether or not these legislatures really represent the interests of working people.
Who would ever thunk it? I didn't think my name would actually get picked.
It's wonderful. It's terrific. It's terrific.
Well, why don't you do it?
No. Seriously, I mean, I tried, but they didn't select me. But I can understand your concern about it being high-powered and everything. But, you know, that's the way this legislature used to be. But now with the selection system, it's not all men and it's not all high-powered lawyers. And frankly, some of the people that selected are not so sharp or, you know, quick. You're a teacher, you're really sharp, and have a lot of experience, and you're going to be able to do a great job.
And yet it can't be an elitist selection of people that are chosen necessarily for what are deemed to be their qualities, but if you were to remove entirely that element of leadership quality, let us say, that we search for in our society, we might be the poorer for it.
He's a politician. He only has that one viewpoint, and he was trained to do that.
I don't think people realize how overwhelming that any political position must be.
One of the unfortunate things about being a bugler is that when a fellow has to be flogged, it sometimes is my job because I'm a bugler.
And you have to play the game. I've never been a fan of non-politicians in politics.
Well, I'll give you one call here. This is the call that we all know in the cavalry. It's known as boots and saddles, and it calls us to attention to get our horses ready and get ourselves ready to move.
I don't want non-baseball players in baseball. It just wouldn't be interesting. And politicians have to know the rules of the game and how to play the game. And so they have to be politicians.
In any walk of life, whether it's the law, medicine, the skill of the individual is what matters the most to those who receive the services of this person.
I think the appearance of leadership is more important than actual leadership, and I think that leadership is something that we can acquire on the job. I don't think it's a prerequisite to having that job.
So, in my view, what's most important to get from a legislature is wisdom in making the tough judgment calls that have to be made in order for society to cohere, survive, move ahead, set its direction.
I'm sort of skeptical of things that are proposed, for a perfect kind of representation or perfect government, even though they're randomly chosen so that, we would have an input of all kinds of individuals with their opinions and their tastes and so on. I still do not believe that they really, that system would represent all of the people in the best possible way.
However, there are some qualms that I would have concerning
sortition as the basis for selecting decision makers. My main concern would be with the presumed expertise that I suppose the persons who might be selected would have to address the many important issues.
In a perfect world, I would say it's wonderful. This is not a perfect world.
Do you want your mommy to go to legislature, Kian? Is that what Dee wants, huh?
I could bring you and you could disarm all those highly ambitious competitive types.
Oopsie.
Oops.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, I think family is a concern, LaTanya. I mean, obviously this is going to be a very demanding job, but being a teacher's demanding too. If Dee needs, or you need support, I'm happy to, quit my job and take care of the kids. Oh, please, yes, thank you. Injure your father. And, I'll do whatever I can to support you. I think it's great. I think you'd be terrific.
What will you do?
What do you want me to do? You want me to be chief of staff? I'll be chief of staff for you. I'll be your chief spokesperson too.
Oh, there we go.
Don't they get salaries too?
Well, that is a big draw, I think, to get health care coverage for life. It might lure me to the big city.
However, I think those that are born into business through privilege are also qualified, and if you want a diverse, representation, it may be hard to convince those people to take a 3-year pay cut.
And not just our party, but all political parties. We've been thinking about these things. Policies, programs, vision. We have focus.
Another problem could be that they will arrive without an agenda, which is an advantage that the political party system have at this moment, that they really analyze the problems in the society, and prepare an agenda to work in every legislature.
Numbers. The sortitionists say proportion, but they don't consider the impact of numbers that count. The right question is not how many, but how much. Not how many knuckleheads can screw in a light bulb, but how much does it cost all of us to have them doing so?
Exactly. Waste. I mean, to have up-team, unskilled numbskulls screw around the light bulb when one focused, dedicated, smart guy or gal could do it.
And judgment calls aren't, while judgment calls use information in order to form judgments, they're also primarily about values. And values get expressed by people in a variety of ways, but having so much to do with life experience and with the part of society that people come from.
It certainly could be that with the help of staff persons to assist the decision makers.
If by education we mean the accretion of information, which is what most people mean by education or schooling.
I would be concerned about knowledge base.
That's really the less important part of what needs to be done by legislation.
Staff members are supportive only, and in the end it has to be the decision maker who has to make some of the very important calls, and these decision makers, in my view, must have a competence.
A legislature needs to take, yes, of course, take the information which can be readily available. People can catch up on information.
And that competence can't be ferreted out simply by sortitional selection.
But what's most of all needed is making those judgment calls, deciding, yes, we should go to war, or no, we should not go to war.
If, in truth, a proportional representative form of government representing the people, that the people would be less likely to send themselves off to a foreign land to fight for the prevailing interest of a very small minority of the population, of the people at large.
And on those kinds of judgment calls, it's a misplaced belief that that's about expertise. Expertise can be all over the lot on any given judgment call.
All of us who are elected, we are babes in the wood in many areas. Take science, because science issues are special. And you can't just dismiss them, they're there, and they've got to be resolved. If you've never had any scientific training of any kind, or exposure, it's hard to focus on what these, in fact it's quite boring sometimes. My committee wasn't all that fascinated by some of the things we had to address. All kinds of odd space endeavors, manned and unmanned. The manned, of course, most exciting, everybody gets involved in that. But the unmanned had a great role to play, and a long testimony that I was, as chairman, I had to go to all these things, listen to them. And I got a little bit of education.
What we really need is the wisdom of the people for such decisions.
In a way, if you stay in Congress, honestly, and the people continue to support you there, you become more and more effective in analyzing the issues that come before you, because it's like any other job. And you see through some of the chicanery in testimony, and you can ask better questions. You're quite right. We're all generalists. We only had one scientist in Congress, and other issues we discuss also on foreign policy. How should the Congress respond to an initiative by the executive in foreign policy? And there's never going to be a perfect solution. It's a dynamic. It keeps going back and forth. And what makes a dynamic effective is good, studious leadership.
I find that interesting remarks. I don't view my Congresspeople as leaders. The only time I see them in public eye is campaigning or asking for money or issuing a soundbite on a popular topic. So I think that's BS.
It doesn't work if you just throw the marbles to the kids to play with. It's got to be somebody that says, here's what I think, and this is why, and now, questions? And get to the nub of the matters involved.
You're nailing it. The one is what we in the party have spent our lives striving towards, a unified field position.
Wait a nanosecond. For the sake of devil's advocating, from a more fundamental perspective, we don't know. Schroeder's cat, you know?
Who's Schroeder? And what does a cat have to do with it?
He's talking about indeterminacy.
Do I think nature is inherently random or ordered? Well, if you believe the people who work on complexity, it is random, but equally there is plenty of non-random behavior within that.
But it's not important. The revolution needs an architectural manifesto. One that takes more time and more thought and more expertise than can be attained through a willy-nilly selection of citizens, no matter how good-hearted they are.
My fear is more not how I see democracy in action, is that I see less of it in action.
I'm not sure that democracy should be, quite honestly. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between what is democracy and what is capitalism. One is an economic system and the other is a political system.
I don't see the public really taking part. I see them complaining a lot.
Our government really is based on people in power and how they control the country and to get what they want.
And being very loud about complaining about it. But there's a lot of talk and very little action, in my opinion.
And it's a complicated issue whether capitalism is something that can make democracy happen or kill it.
Stop bullshitting the people. That's the main thing. Stop bullshitting the people.
Of course, we have a two-party system, mostly two-party system, which is Republican and Democrats. The Democrats generally vote Democratic. I don't know if they're really making a real choice on issues. I think it's the party rule, and that's sad.
I like to think that our legislators have prepared for office by first of all, education. Secondly, by their own experiences and by their motivation for wanting to go into Congress.
Everyone's motivation is a little bit different. Look at this, 535 people there wailing away at all the problems we have. How each one of them has a personal story, a kind of column of interest that started from school, family, job, relationships, anger at what's happening, hope for what could happen. There are rare instances when huge, I guess, financial sources push some guy that isn't all that interested, but all right, if you give me a leg, I'll do something. So I think that what we need to do is keep identifying that combination of qualities in an individual who's running for a particular office, that he's the one, or she's the one. I put my faith.
The sortitionally chosen lack geography. They're like the so-called community of the internet, you know, disassociated, connected only conceptually, virtually. It's a big country.
Even though I have all the issues and things that I in particular am passionate about, I wouldn't be representing necessarily a constituency in my district.
Well, I think this is a big relief for you. That means you don't have to be going to events every single night representing a geographic area. I think they just want you to be yourself. And that this selection system has been such that there are different kinds of people all over the country, and that's the way that they ensure that the population is being listened to, is that they're all different kinds of people.
I guess, you know, eventually, all the issues, you know, the education issues and the healthcare issues and all the issues that have to deal with women and families would finally maybe have a voice.
Well, yes. I mean, that's why I think you should do it.
Anyone that's going to represent other people needs to be an individual, I think, that, you know, present the views of the party or the government or whatever in the best possible light so that people can absorb it, understand it, you know.
First thing I will do, I will find out more information about the problems that Latinos, women, and people living in poverty are facing in the U.S. Second, I will try to design solutions and get together with other people who have been chosen also to find out what possible solutions and options are for their problems.
And you hope to God we'd produce people like that. If we don't, then we're in real trouble, because we divide up into all kinds of little sections and start whacking away.
I don't know. It's so easy to say what should be done. It's just hard when somebody says, all right, now you do it better.
On the one hand, I would want a government of the people, by the people, for the people, but I'm cynical enough and perhaps experienced enough to experience that most of the people either don't care or have the capacity of really caring.
I don't know if it would cure any ills that we have now, or if it was just another method of getting to the same problems with money and corporate influence.
That's no good. I think that the American experience is a distillation that ought to bring us all on up to the same point of understanding of what the country needs and what it wants.
Up until now, thanks to the party system, we've been able to aggregate. But now, you know, everybody sits on his or her nook and cranny.
Maybe so. But don't forget that once these people are face to face in the legislature, they're still going to vote.
Since it'd still be a democracy, we'd have to vote on things, so we'd have to get people to agree on issues for things to actually happen, but the general public has the ability to, I mean, we negotiate our issues every day in work and life and you know, so I think it's completely possible.
If you're making a distinction between all the other walks of life and politics, or in fact, politics is, in this sense, is taken out entirely because it is a random selection.
I don't really think politicians are necessarily the best ones to continue in office.
Do I think politicians are the best to do politics? So yes, ultimately I do think they are. They do it as it's their living. It's what they are trained to do. It's what they enjoy doing.
What's more important, the polity, the citizens, or the politicians who are shaped or shape them?
Of
course, they can be, the vast majority of them are cynical and self-interested.
And I would have to go on the side of the people, that there is a wisdom in the community, that if there was a way to more effectively manifest it.
The voting process is extremely complicated, and it's daunting to go into that little booth and look at that paper or that series of levers and try to remember what the heck all that was for.
And you know about the idea to elect even the executive from within the legislature. Talk about loss of power. All the political parties are sunk.
Well, all of this is supposed to lead to dispersal of power and eventually the widespread development of leadership qualities throughout the populace. But it's yet to be seen if we're really going toward that. There are ways other than direct control of purse strings to exert influence.
But an anxious electorate to spot, to make distinctions between the individuals that are contending that are not based on wealth or money or the ability to obfuscate an issue.
Usually the voices that are heard are the ones that speak the loudest because they have the greatest, support from either groups or power people.
But, to be truthful, in this country, in this society, there's too many people who have too much financially at stake to even let the common man try that.
It makes it difficult for a politician to stand by under those kinds of arrangements, to stand by his convictions. Because if he doesn't go according to the policy of the party, he's going to be run over, Is that democracy? Yeah, I think so.
Well, that may be democracy as we know it, as we have come to accept it, but it's a long way from a democratic republic of, by, and for the people. It comes down to who do we trust? Our fellow citizens? Our neighbors? Ourselves.